I'm selling the Beato. Welcome back to the mix. I'm ABD. Today we're talking about how I made the decision to sell the signature Les Paul that I have here. I've had it for a few months, and I really wanted this guitar since Rick was talking about it and showing it off on his channel, and he did so for quite a while before they were available to purchase. And when they were available to purchase, they went very quickly, and they weren't the easiest thing to get, but I was able to get my hands on one. And there's a lot that I like about this guitar, and so it wasn't the easiest thing for me to decide that I wanted to get rid of it, but there were a few things that helped me decide that. Number one, it's expensive for what you're getting here. It was a $19.99 MSRP when they came out, and now they're going for about $2,500 or $3,000 when they first came out, and they were hard to get because they only made a very small number of them. I forget the exact number. If you're still trying to get one, the word is that they're making more, according to Rick and according to other YouTubers. They are making supposedly another run of these. I don't know how many will be in that run. So if you do want one, I would try to not pay the inflated price that you see on Reverb or other parts of the internet that might be charging a little too much for the guitar. But for as much money as you paid, or you would pay for this guitar, one of the things that bothered me was the overall QA, which is a typical Gibson thing. Their QA is not the best. The binding, for example, has some tooling marks on it that don't look that nice, especially in certain light. You could see them, some like little bumps and peaks and valleys and things that aren't super great. And here, the binding is kind of separating a little bit from the wood here. And the way the finish is done with the binding, the wood pokes out. There's like a little lip from the wood to the white binding you can easily feel, and it's not the nicest thing when you're moving up and down the neck. The fretwork is beautiful as usual. There's no dead spots or anything like that. The action was a little low for me. I feel like it needs to be raised a little bit to get the kind of punch that I would like to see out of these P90s. The pickups sound great. Of course they're noisy because they're P90s, and so you run into that issue, but they do sound really good. And so probably the biggest issue with the guitar is the tuners. These are Grover Deluxe, like vintage type tuners, but they feel solid, but they don't stay in tune that well. I don't know what it is about the Grover vintage style tuners, or just Grover tuners in general. They kind of suck. Gibson puts them on like everything, and they are not the best tuners by any means. They just, you leave the guitar sitting and it just kind of goes flat. So I feel like I'm always tuning up the guitar, but you could alleviate that by replacing the tuners, but I have not done that to keep it all original. The pickguard, I didn't take the plastic off. I never did that because I thought I might not be keeping it forever. And then another thing we could talk about, one of the things that makes me not love this guitar is it just doesn't have the vibes that I wanted it to have. A Les Paul, one of the things about it that makes it one of the best guitars ever made is that it has some of the best vibes. When you're playing it, it just has a great feel to it. The weight, the looks of it, it's classy, rock and roll. It brings back memories of all of these people, famous people you've seen playing it on stage and looking super cool and shredding and making amazing music. And the double cut shape, the Les Paul double cut shape, because that's what you're looking at here, is a Les Paul with a second cut, even though it's not really the same shape. The horn on a Les Paul is not exactly that shape. The idea being that if you had wood here, it would be a Les Paul shape. But even if you did add that, it's a little changed. And it's a Les Paul special, so it's thinner, and it's only mahogany. It doesn't have a maple cap, and that does change the tone and the characteristics of the guitar when you're playing it, the sustain and things like that. And it has a satin finish, which is nice. I do like it, but there are some spots that you can see because it reveals the grain of the wood much more than if you had a full finish and a shiny nitro coat on the very outside. You can kind of see some imperfections in the way that it was cut around here where it's kind of sloppy. The neck is a standard Gibson thin neck, and it does feel good. It's nice and rounded and thin. Maybe it's a little too thin for me. I feel like this type of guitar would maybe benefit from having like a more vintage, thicker neck. And definitely if, like I said, that binding didn't have this kind of lip on it, that would make a big difference too. But it's a tiny little tendon here that sticks out from the back, and so you have complete fret access all the way to the top. You can get up here no problem. Really on a Les Paul, I don't usually have too much of an issue getting up here if I need to, because this is usually where like your thumb will be stopped, is like here. But they're staying true to the vintage specs of an old Les Paul double cut. But it's a double cut special, and so like I said, it's thinner and it's much lighter. This guitar is only 6.6 pounds. And the balance is another thing that I don't love. You know, it's a little head heavy, and the body, it isn't balanced in a way that feels that great. Like I said before, the vibes that you get from playing a guitar, the way that it feels the weight against your body, and the way that it, maybe a strap holds it, it feels a certain way. It does still smell like a Gibson. It's a little bit of a different kind of nitro smell because it's the satin finish, and so it's maybe not as strong. But I've had it for a few months, and it still smells like a Gibson nitro finish. And so it's a beautiful finish. If you look closely, you can see the grain, and it looks beautiful. It's one of the better looking signature guitars from Gibson, and it's different. It's definitely different. But Music is Win, who's another YouTuber, I had a tweet talking about how we were living in signature guitar inception, because this is a Les Paul, technically, which was the first signature guitar ever. And now it's a Rick Beato signature guitar, too. So it's a Les Paul Rick Beato signature. And so we're in Inception. I totally agree, Tyler. But anyways, we can hear a little bit of how it sounds, because obviously that's what you do with the guitar is play it. And so on the neck pickup, it sounds like this. Middle position. And bridge. And so the pickups are incredibly dynamic and detailed. They sound really good. You probably know what a Gibson P90 sounds like because you probably heard it on songs before. The nut was cut super well. There's not much binding in the nut, so the strings are going right through it, pretty much no problem. It has a rosewood fretboard because Rick did not want ebony, but I think it's dyed because it's very dark brown and uniform. But it feels really good and smooth, like super duper smooth. The bridge and all of that stuff, Tune-O-Matic bridge, does its job. It doesn't vibrate or anything like that. But again, it's an expensive guitar, and I feel like for what you're getting is a piece of mahogany, 2 P90s, even though a set of P90s now is like $250, which is crazy. It's a bit of an expensive guitar. And it feels, you know, kind of cheap. It doesn't feel like a super high quality because the specials were really like first meant to be a cheaper version of the Les Paul, like for students and things like that. And now you're getting a signature Rick Beato Les Paul special double cut. And it's expensive because everything from Gibson is expensive nowadays. And, you know, they're for a certain type of player, for sure. But the fact that, you know, I was a big fan of Rick and I saw his content a lot and he was playing it, and I thought it just looked like the coolest thing ever. They make these really hard to get your hands on, double cut. They have really the only other double cut that Gibson sells for the longest time was this historic, like 1950 whatever in TV yellow. It was like aged and relic, and I think it's like $5,000 or something like that. And so this was like a more affordable Les Paul double cut that you could get from Gibson without having to worry about that kind of crazy price and the aging and stuff like that. But again, still it's an expensive guitar, and like we talked about before, the vibes are kind of just not there for me. It's a great feeling guitar to play, and it does sound pretty good, but it's a little light, it's a little thin in a way that I don't really want my Les Paul to be necessarily. And the sustain is good, the setup and all of that stuff is really impressive. And so that was on the neck again. If we go to the bridge, we get more of an aggressive kind of tone for sure. So yeah, like I said, it's a great sounding guitar. It does feel good to play. We're running into one of the issues that I talked about before. It's already coming out of tune, and I haven't been playing it for long at all or going too hard on it. So I'm going to tune it up, and then we'll try it with a super heavy gain kind of thing, so we could show that it's not really the best for that. It's really meant for kind of for cleans and dirty stuff, but just for an example of what it sounds like, super overdriven. So yeah, right away there's a lot more feedback. It's on the neck, but let's try the bridge. So yeah, it's not really meant for chugging or like metal. You're not really going to metal with this because there's too much feedback through the super big single coil pickups. But overall, I do like the guitar. I just don't love it, and I really had to love it to keep it. But I am very thankful that I was able to try it and own it for a while and see and feel what Rick was talking about, because this guitar is based on his favorite guitar that he plays all the time, and so it was cool to see what that was and kind of experience a piece of history, because that's what this is, I think, a piece of history. It was a guitar that people played years ago that felt good then, and it feels good now, but it doesn't really bring with it the modern sensibilities that I would want from a modern Gibson and when I'm spending this much on a guitar. And another thing that I didn't talk about, but I can mention quickly that bothered me, is on the finish up here on the headstock under the Les Paul logo, there's a little hair that got stuck in there. I don't know if you can see that. And I don't necessarily love that. That was something that I had to deal with this guitar. But overall, it's a beautiful guitar that plays well, that has sound that's pretty unique to it for it being a fully mahogany body and stuff like that. But what do you think? Do you think that I should have kept it? Or do you think that the money is better spent somewhere else like I do? So thank you for watching. Thank you, Rick, for making this awesome guitar. And like I said before, I'm happy that I had the opportunity to have it and try it. And I hope the person that does get it will love it more than I do and cherish it forever and ever, and not just try to turn around and sell it on Reverb for more money. So thank you for watching, and until next time, play guitar and be awesome.